7 rows and 9 columns?
I would rather have the 7 rows and 9 columns because I'm not a person who really likes chocolate that much.
That means you've got to solve for both scenarios to see which one best fits you and your preferences. Yes, ma'am? Find a turn and talk partner and share all of your thinking. Quickly find a turn and talk partner. Off you go.
I did not know.
So, Ms. Freed, thank you for letting me come and visit your classroom. It was fantastic.
We enjoyed you being here.
All right, so I have some questions for you.
Sure.
All right, first one is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best lesson you've ever taught and 1 being the worst, how would you rank the lesson that you did yesterday?
I think for a review lesson, it actually went very well. So I would rank this one, I would say about an 8. It's kind of difficult sometimes to keep engagement if it's a review lesson. As you know, we were preparing for the county district assessment, so we were essentially reviewing everything that the kids had learned the first 9 weeks, so all 5 different operations. So it is kind of hard to squeeze it all in there and keep them engaged, but for the most part, I was pleased that the kids that were able to work more independently really stayed on task, so took it seriously.
So I hear you say that you're pleased about the engagement and their level of independent working.
Yes.
As well as your small group that you were working with too. They were very much engaged.
Yes,
Something
for the
else?
most part, I would say like the kids in small group, sometimes that group, just by the nature of them needing extra help, they do struggle with focus and attention. There were a couple instances with 2 students during that lesson where I felt like I had to, come back, refocus. And that's sort of typical for those kids.
Okay, so it's something you see.
No, yeah, not
as
something
a
out of
pattern.
the ordinary. Yes, with
Okay.
those 2 or 3. Yes.
So what would have to change to move that lesson closer to a 10?
So closer to a 10, probably in the best case scenario, would be to have a small group of kids.
Okay.
That's not always possible. If there was a way to break that group into 2 smaller groups, but yet still keep those more struggling students on task, working independently, to almost split the small group in half. So if they had something meaningful to work on that was kind of at their level, but also continuing to review those skills and also maybe give them some feedback as they're working, that would have been a nice tool to have used.
Okay. So I hear you saying time and cutting the group in half would really make that closer to a 10. Okay. What would your class be doing differently if it was at a 10?
Again, hopefully I would be able to give more individual attention to students. Sometimes it's tricky when they're able to choose their strategy, so it's hard when you have a group of 6 or 7 kids and you're trying to help 2 kids on a number line strategy, right, when everybody else is using like base 10 blocks, so just that quick movement. So, and I don't think I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you did.
What would we be doing differently? Again, I would just say possibly less kids to keep everybody more on track.
All right. So tell me more about what that change would look like. Like, what do you think that, besides it being in half, like having instead of 8 kids, you'd have obviously 4. So what would that look like?
Well, if I had to split my smaller group in half, and then like I said, that would be the struggle is coming up with the 4 that are not working with me. What can they do independently? What can they do to self-check their work? How can they maintain that independent focus and motivation on their own?
Okay. So how would we measure that change? Like if we found something that would meet that goal, how do you think we could measure that?
Yeah, so like I would think two ways. So one would just be anecdotally, right? So you see those kids active and engaged, doing their work, checking their work to see if they're successful, continuing that perseverance. And then the second thing, of course, would be data, right?
Yep. Test
Right.
scores
So over
possibly.
time, how are they performing on even just grade level assessments or even county assessments?
Okay. So do you want that to be your goal? Is that something you want to work on? Your small group?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you could hit that goal, would it really matter to you?
Yes, it really would matter to me because
Tell me a little bit about that.
So I feel like often with the smaller group, outside of the test scores, I feel like there's a self-confidence issue that some of those kids struggle with. I mean, it's third grade, so they're probably the group of kids that struggled in kindergarten and first grade, but by the time you reach the end of second grade and by the time you're in third grade, I mean, you definitely realize if you're the kid that's always pulled to the back table. Now, some of them still like it because there is that extra attention, but I think as the year progresses, they become more aware of that. So honestly, if they just had something they could work on independently, be successful, and get that feedback, I think that would be really a confidence builder to them. Yeah.
Okay. So what teaching strategy can you use to hit your goal? Let's do some technology ideas.
Okay.
Like because your teaching strategies are amazing and they're implementing them, but we need to think of how, if you have 4 kids or 4 students here, what could the other 4 be doing? And then you could switch.
Right.
Maybe next day okay. So thinking about technology, what would be something that would help you reach your goal where those 8 students would improve on independent engagement?
I am not familiar with any sort of technology.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, like, I know the county has had us use ClassWorks before. I mean, I just haven't seen anybody get really excited about that. The only technology, honestly, that we use on a regular basis in third grade, and that's just once a week during your math rotation, which you didn't see a normal day because it was a review day, so you didn't see the math rotation day. But there is Math Prodigy, and that's typically what we've sort of used. Now, my small group people, they hardly ever get to Math Prodigy, because most of their time is spent with me.
So what I hear you saying, that possibly if you split that group up, they could do Prodigy, they could do some other programs, and then they could switch. You could maybe have a little less time here, and then switch a little bit, or the next day. And that's also improving their independence. And they're building their confidence because they're working by themselves or they're working in a small group, the 4 of them together. Okay. So how are we going to meet that goal? Let's see. So you say
But I'm also open to other things besides Math Prodigy.
Okay.
So I'm not necessarily totally sold on Math Prodigy because from my standpoint, honestly, not being a tech guru and having not looked into it.
Okay.
To me, it always just looks like a game.
Okay.
But that's because I'm hardcore.
Okay. And that's okay. So it's not really meeting your goal. I mean,
I don't think it really is.
There's too much
game
fluff. Playing rather than the actual calculations. Okay. So if I introduced you to some programs that I know a little, something about, would you be willing to try some of those ideas in your class?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are a few things that I know of, and it's called bottle learning. Okay, so that is one. It's similar to Prodigy, but it has soccer and basketball. Okay. So it's a little less game playing, but the kids know they got the questions correct if they get to play the game.
Okay.
All right, so it's a little different than Prodigy. Okay. Another one that I'm suggesting that would be fantastic to help you meet your goal would be something called Class Kick.
All right.
You can for saving time, you can upload all of your slides, and they can be working on your slides as you're working with the smaller group. They can use, I know, they can use their notes and take a picture of it to show their work. They can use the microphone and they can record it. They can use a text box and they can write it.
Okay.
So at the first you would want them to be able to just make a choice, because I know you said that's one thing you want them to do because you want to build their confidence.
Right, right.
And so would you be willing to implement Class Kick in at least one of your small groups or with some of your students in your class?
Oh, for sure.
All right, so let's start with that. And reviewing, we want to make sure the kids' engagement continues. You want to be able to make your small group half the size,
Yep.
so you can build their confidence working independently.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So what we're going to do is I will just send you the directions to Bottle Learning and Class Kick.
All right.
That way you can just kind of look at it, see what you think, and then I
Mhm.
can help you work on that.
All
It'll
right.
be fantastic. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you for working with me.
I'm pleased to have you.